All right, and so here we are. We're not necessarily live, but we are live right now, and we will. I will share this in multiple channels to for replay views. But we're going to talk today about. Today I have a guest who's a repeat guest, one of my first repeat guests, Chrissy Marquardt. You can check her out over at 5-day website class.com and iamchrisy.com for her 5-day website class. So today I just wanted to, thanks for joining, Chrissy. Just
Thanks
really
for
wanted
having
to,
me.
yeah, anytime. And I know that you've been, doing a lot of work around, being a freelance, web designer and working with WordPress and Genesis and just doing a lot of awesome stuff. I've been seeing you, I'm following you on, I'm not a stalker, but I've been following you on social media, and you seem to really, you're building your brand, and it's one thing that, I see people, setting up websites. It's a challenge when you're getting started. And there's a lot of people out there that are struggling when it comes to, setting up their websites and whatnot. So today I wanted to talk to you about, what, and get your thoughts on, what are some of the top, kind of DIY mistakes that you've encountered out in the wild, and
Sure,
how
absolutely.
some solutions on how to fix them.
So some of the top DIY mistakes, oh gosh, where do I begin? The first thing is picking a theme with, I would say probably the number one DIY mistake that people have is they go to somebody else's website, maybe somebody that's in their industry that's maybe a few steps ahead of them as far as where they want to be, and they say, I want a website exactly like that. That's the first thing. And a very popular example of that in our industry is Marie Forleo. I cannot tell you how many people have come and said, oh, I want a website like Marie Forleo's or this and that. And I kind of make this joke that we have this joke amongst us web designers that, a lot of people are asking for the Marie Forleo special. So that's and you can swipe out Marie Forleo for anybody else, any big influencer. And so a lot of people that are kind of in the beginning stage, they say, well, I want my website to be exactly like that. And that's a mistake, is because you don't want their website. You want their brand, you want their fame, you want their email list, you want their notoriety, you want their influence. And you have your own way of doing that, and you will get there, but it just takes some time. So, people are trying to kind of, imitate others, thinking that, oh, well, if my website looks exactly like that person's, then I'm going to get the same amount of success. So that's the first mistake. And that could be even said for web design clients. Mistake number two is that, one of the biggest questions that people ask, what theme should I use? And we can get into that a little bit more, because I know you and I love to talk about WordPress themes. And they pick a theme without really having a plan. And so, when you're building your website, when I'm building a website for a customer and they hire me, I don't jump into WordPress right away. I have a process that I go through. The first is, which is I ask a number of questions about their branding, their business, who they are, what they do, who they serve, why does it matter, what makes them different, and then things like figuring out like content and strategy and things of that nature. And so the biggest mistake that people say is that, oh, well, I need a website, and they just buy a theme, and then they get frustrated and they struggle to make that theme bend and mold the way that they want without really having some type of a plan in place. And so I could probably go on and on, but probably those are my actually, I'll add one more. Is I would probably say the third mistake that I think people think is that they pick a platform because so-and-so said to do that without really doing their research. No. You and I are WordPress people, and I know that the other contender out there is Squarespace. I am actually not knocking Squarespace. I think Squarespace is great and has its place, but I'm a WordPress gal. So I would 9 times out of 10 recommend WordPress. I actually do have a blog post on my website that talks about WordPress versus Squarespace, and I kind of go into really in depth about when someone should use WordPress versus when somebody should use Squarespace. And so I'm not knocking it, but I think people jump into either one or the other without knowing enough and doing their research. And so those would be my 3 biggest mistakes, is that wanting to imitate somebody else's website rather than being inspired. Number 2 is picking a theme without having a plan in terms of your branding, your content, and your plan, and then getting frustrated because you're trying to mold and bend this theme to work for your business and it's not working because it's just a generic stock theme, and then not really understanding what platforms are which. And I would even go further back to number 3, So the two big contenders are Squarespace and WordPress, but, there's Wix, there's Weebly, and there's other website builders as well too. But too often people just go to, either one of those because it's the easiest thing. And then they hit a block, not realizing what their long-term plans are. And then they eventually have to switch, and it's a pain in the where. So those, I would say those are the three biggest DIY mistakes. Imitation, picking a theme without understanding your plan or functionality, and then same thing with the platform, picking a platform without really understanding what your long-term goals are. So that's a little bit more strategy, but that's kind of like where my brain goes. And so hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I'm thinking, when I think about those three things, I definitely see myself, in the early days of hitting each one of those roadblocks, like, looking at like, a Pat Flynn website or Smart Passive Income or one of these other websites that have like, it's like they're in the Lamborghini or the Ferrari stage, and like,
Exactly.
I'm just
We're in
starting out.
you're in the Honda Civic stage.
Yeah, exactly. So, I definitely see that, but I come from an agile software development world and project management world. And so, one of the things I like to kind of envision when I set up, websites or even build software is that minimum viable product, and trying to understand that, it's not necessarily going to be the most elegant and most beautiful solution with all the bells and whistles, but it's something shippable, and it's something that
Absolutely.
I can ship to get feedback on, and so kind of similar to a lot of people out there that are just ship it, launch things. I focus on that kind of aspect, and it's a hard thing to, when you're building it yourself and DIYing it, it's much more difficult, I find, because you start falling into perfectionism and tweaking and then self-comparison, and then your launch date is like it like is floating constantly.
Yes, it keeps just floating further away.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, I just for everybody to know, I am self-taught, and so I don't have a formal training in graphic design or web development. I've always been fascinated by the web. And so I use the web to teach myself how to build websites. I joke that I went to Google and YouTube University, kind of dropped in and out, picked up some extra credits off of Amazon by buying some Kindle WordPress books. And that's kind of how I taught myself. But when I decided to become a web designer, it took me like 4 months to build my own website because of the DIY and the tweaking and making it perfect and learning code and figuring out the theme and all that good stuff too. So yes, I can absolutely see where you can get caught in the what is it called, paralysis analysis syndrome of like making sure every T is crossed and every I is dotted, and not shipping the darn thing. Where no, I'll tell people, just put something out there. If you're just starting out, do not hire a designer. Can I add that to the list? Like that's number 4 is hiring is if you're a DIYer who is really not ready to hire and you're hiring somebody because you're trying to avoid doing it yourself, like do not do that. Do not pay somebody a few grand to do your website for you if you're just starting out, because you don't know what the hell you want, and it's going to take you at least 2 years, maybe 3, to figure out exactly what you want and to get clear and to be focused and to be committed to that. And then when you start to make money in your business from that standpoint and you can reinvest, that is when you should hire a designer. I feel even though I am a designer, I feel very strong about that. My ideal client is not a newbie. It's somebody who's been doing what they've been doing for a while, and they see the value of hiring somebody like me. And so it's tempting to throw money at the problem, but that's probably the number 4 thing, is do not hire somebody before you're ready. But yeah, going back to my previous point, I would even say, just have a minimum viable product. Like if you're just starting out, just have a simple homepage, about page. If you're a freelancer, have a way for people, have some information about, what your services are, what you charge, how people can get in touch with you to hire you, and go from there. Because the thing is, there are many entrepreneurs out there that you and I both know that have built a multiple 6-figure business and their website looks like crap. And so that being said, you know, having something is better than having nothing, but it doesn't, don't spend so much time tweaking and perfecting it. Like, get something out there, like Danny says, a minimal viable product. And as your business starts to grow, again, that's the time to maybe bring somebody on, like even like a VA or somebody to make those tweaks that you want, that you maybe don't have the time to do. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. So like, you know, when it comes to DIY, I always think, after looking at how page builders have kind of come out and really evolved, they're becoming more of a standard now. And even WordPress is started their attempts at a page builder called Project Gutenberg, but it's still kind of lacking. And so like some of the things that I've really like, the tools that have really been interesting and actually I use right now. So like I use Thrive. I still use Studio Press or Genesis theme.
Yeah, Genesis.
But the page builder aspect of it, like Thrive Architect is one that's page builder focused on conversions. And so they have like if you get the membership, they have like the page builder, the Thrive Leads, which is like a replacement for like something like Lead Pages. It comes with A/B testing and all the marketing bells and whistles for
good stuff.
Alabox for people who are not really good at coding or good at picking apart the WordPress kind of the nuances with WordPress, because we know that if you're new to WordPress, there is, just like any system, there's a
learning curve. Huh? Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, no, and I definitely agree with you about the page builders. And so this is probably going to sound a little bit conflicting, but hey, that's the fun of it, right? And so when you and I met a couple of years ago, I was a big Genesis person. I that's how I learned to code. That's how I learned how to build a website, was like just playing around with Genesis themes. I bought one theme for my first website. I think it was like the Executive Pro theme. This is like in 2013.
Oh, wow.
And then I eventually bought the whole pack, and every time they added me, I mean, I would just play around with them. I built clients on Genesis. And so but where I kind of got frustrated, and I eventually moved over to Divi. So now I'm a Divi user, and that's what I teach in my course, both my free course and my paid course. It's what I am rebuilding my website on, and what I now use for client sites going forward. My thing with Genesis was that when I was building Genesis sites, and I found that my clients so let me back up. When I build sites for clients, I really believe in empowering my clients to be able to maintain and manage their own websites without having to call me every time. And it's not like it's not an annoyance thing, but it's like, it's your digital asset. I believe you should know how to maintain it, because I've run into so many people that are being held hostage by a developer or designer because they do not know how to go in and update their website. And so their website sits there and gathering digital dust. And so I was finding that with my clients, that they were kind of having a hard time maintaining their Genesis sites, and that they would have to call me, and I would have to go in and do little tweaks here and there. It wasn't as intuitive for them, as say something like Divi, which I find to be way more intuitive for me. And again, this is probably going to sound a little bit controversial, but I'm just going to speak freely. So I love more of the front end design and the development part. Like, I know how to code, and I know enough to be dangerous, and I've broken websites, and I've gotten the white screen of death, and I know how to fix that and everything, and I'm comfortable getting into that. But my zone of genius is more in the design and the strategy of the website. And so at Genesis, I was finding that I personally was having to spend a lot more of my time and energy tweaking a lot of code, like spending hours like tweaking and coding just to get something to look the way that I wanted it to. And it was frustrating, and it would slow me down and slow down my process. And so that was kind of my roadblock with Genesis, and my clients were having a hard time going in and maintaining and updating their websites. And then, even like 6 months, a year later, I'd be getting calls. And even though I provided training, it just wasn't intuitive. And so when I made the move to Divi a couple of years ago, all of those things essentially went away, because Divi is a drag and drop page builder. I still use code in Divi, but Divi makes me a faster designer. And I find that when I did my course with my students, it was much more intuitive to tell people, here's what you do, here's what you go in. And when I provide training for my clients in Divi, they're like, oh, I can just like edit it on the page. I'm like, yeah, you can just do it right there. And so that's kind of so I know that was a little bit controversial, Danny. I'm sorry. I know you're a Genesis user.
No. It's totally cool. I mean, it's the way I look at it is it's, the tools are just kind of the medium, to get you to your
Exactly.
destination. And
Yeah,
I honestly,
absolutely.
when we talked last, I was a Rainmaker user. And
That's right. Oh, dude, I forgot about that.
yeah. And I jumped ship from Rainmaker because it just was not very, I mean, I love Studio Press. I think they make great looking minimal themes, but they're not
Agreed.
for the average DIYer.
They're
And,
not,
yeah.
and they're not, absolutely. And another thing that I would add to that, that's a really good point. Genesis is not for the average DIY. Genesis are for DIY bloggers and people who really want to learn development. I feel that, and that's another reason why I eventually moved over to Divi. So Thrive Themes, I still haven't played around with that, and I really want to, because you've mentioned it to me multiple times, and I know a few other of our colleagues have mentioned it as well too, and I see their ads and everything like that too. Another thing with Divi, I kind of watch and observe, the content, and Divi really knows their audience and their market really well, and they do a very good job of serving them. And here's what I mean by that. I'm always seeing them in my Facebook newsfeed. They're always making updates. They let people know about the updates. Whenever people say, hey, can you do this and that? They listen and they do it. And they really gear their content, not just for design and development, but gearing it in a way where we as designers can be more of digital strategists to our clients. And what I mean is that they provide tools and resources in a way, for example, email opt-ins. They also do A/B split testing. You can do lead pages, and they have the templates built in. And so they know that there's they know that their customers who are designers and developers, or the clients of designers and developers, are marketers, coaches, people that want to go for that multiple six-figure thing. They've got launches, they've got website, they've got courses, all that good stuff. And so they cater their tools so that we as designers and developers can build that for our clients. Genesis and they have a lot of content on their website. You go onto the Elegant Themes website, and if I want to find how to tweak a portfolio thing, I can go on there and I can find it. Genesis, I actually had a hard time finding content to support the use of their theme. And I had to go into a paid membership outside of Genesis to get the support that I needed and to figure out the code that I needed. And so the market for Genesis is more clean, more minimalistic, like you said, and more for, I would say, bloggers, DIYers, and people who are really looking to become like developers. And so that's another reason why I kind of shifted gears, personally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, you just want to be able to do things like you were saying, like, fast, and you're someone who is skilled at WordPress and development. And so it just goes to show you that, like, time is a scarcity. It's something that is a scarcity for everyone, regardless of whether you know how to do it or not. And that's a big thing. And so, with using a page builder, there's some people that have, reservations about using them because they're like, oh, well, it's not like I'm not coding. And the truth of the matter is like, it's the way that the technology is moving. It's moving into a realm of, you want to reuse code and reuse things intelligently, instead of having to reinvent the wheel. And
Absolutely.
so when you're doing things from scratch, you're essentially doing that. You're reinventing the wheel. And even in the software development world, it's like we leverage open source technology, pre-existing libraries of different, functions and code that, you don't have to do it from scratch, because those tools exist for you to extend and build things as you see fit. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm still a WordPress fan, and I actually got into a little bit of a designer hole, you could call it, where I was testing out some different tools. And I shot you a link to WEBFLOW.
Oh yeah.
WEBFLOW is if a non-WordPress tool. It's definitely one of the coolest things that I've checked out. It's all self-hosted. Awesome. And
I gotta play around with that.
And it's totally like designer friendly. You can do a whole lot with it very quickly. And you can provide, if you're looking to provide, I think it's primarily geared towards freelancers. And so freelance designers. So you can bill your clients from your account. Like, you can set up websites for them and bill them all within your WEBFLOW account. And
Oh, okay.
and your clients have an editing kind of view where it's just, you know, what you see is what you get on the page.
Sure.
They can
Yeah.
edit anything to their heart's content. So it's really like interesting how the focus has shifted off of, you know, code and more of ease of use. But the
Exactly.
problem with Webflow, that's really kind of, I think most of the people in the community are kind of really waiting for more e-commerce functionality and more like marketing functionality. And those
Yeah.
things can't necessarily get out of the box unless you start moving to like really build some tools outside of the platform.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
so yeah,
Yeah,
nothing is
I've
ever going
heard
to
a
do
lot of
everything.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Webflow. I've heard really good things. I haven't really played around with it too much, but I'm in a design mentorship and several people have talked about it. So it almost kind of sounds like I could basically design a website in Webflow, kind of like a mock-up, if you will, and I can show it to my clients and they can go in and kind of like move things around, and then maybe I could take that and then move it over to take that design and then do something similar in WordPress. Is that kind of like what it is, or is it just like you build the website within Webflow?
Yeah, so you can, it depends on how you can use it as like more of a wireframing tool if you want,
Oh,
or
okay.
you can, and you can totally export the code, which is like, you know,
Wow.
clean HTML. It's not like WordPress where, you know, WordPress can get a little heavy and bloated depending
Yeah,
upon like the plugins you're using and all that other stuff,
sure.
but it's
Yeah.
clean HTML that you can export, and you can import or create a brand new, like, you know, web page structure based off of that code. So it's, you
Wow.
don't have to use their hosting, but they make it really easy because they host everything. And when you build it, you can publish it and it's there. It's just, you know, live.
Awesome.
It's a live site.
Okay. You've piqued my interest. I'm gonna have to in
Yeah.
the little free time that I have these days. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
play around with that and check that out. Thanks for mentioning that to me. I'll have
Yeah.
to check that out.
I mean, they have a CMS. So for WordPress users, you know, people blog,
Oh,
they've got a
okay.
dynamic CMS where you can create they call them collection lists, where you can create these, like, you know, let's say a good example would be a company directory of a dozen people that work for the company. You
Sure.
can create a collection list of people and their photos, their just bios,
Yeah.
or links to social media, and those are like dynamic content that you can just kind of, if you think about it in WordPress terms, you can use as like a short code, right?
Okay.
To
Yeah.
spread throughout, you know, the various pages and posts that you want to create. So it's,
Awesome.
yeah. But anyway, and I was kind of
Yeah.
going off on a
I know we're going
non-WordPress
off on tangents. I
tangent,
know.
but it's
Hey, that's
amazing to
what
see the
happens when you get
tools.
two website geeks in the same room, right?
But it is amazing to see what the tools are out there that are available. But, you know,
Absolutely.
so, you know, kind of, so recapping, like when we talked about, like, you know, the sort of like the comparison, syndrome, if you want to call it that, where, you know, people are, you know, kind of constantly comparing themselves to like some of the people they look up to and expecting like those kinds of websites out of the box, you know, out of the gate. And that's something that is, it's not impossible later on down the road. It's just not something that
Yeah.
you're going to get right away. And then the
It's
next thing
not
was, you know,
realistic. Yeah.
the theme choices, and, you know, making sure that you're choosing a good theme, and, you know, kind of going into the page builders. It seems like if you're DIYing it, it would almost be silly not to give a page builder a try, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
whether
No,
it's
and on that note, so for example, so let's go back to
mm,
StudioPress, because I was a
right,
StudioPress user, like I said, back in the day, and they have tons and tons and tons of themes. And so I'm I myself in the beginning, would get frustrated because I would choose a theme just based off of, oh, it looks pretty, I want my website to look like that, but
yeah,
not really having like a clear plan. There are great there are great themes out there. I still recommend, if you're more of a blogger and that's going to be your business model, I actually recommend StudioPress over Divi. I know Divi has the extra theme. I've not played around with it yet. I've heard it's great. It's kind of like a page builder like Divi, but more geared towards blogger. It's more magazine style. I personally have not played around with it, but StudioPress, their audience are bloggers. Hands down, that's what they are. That's who they cater their themes for, their designs for, even their content, they're for bloggers, hands down. So if you are going to be like a blogger, like I'm going to make money with my blog and all that good stuff and write content, I would probably even say go StudioPress. But like a lot of people, they choose a theme without really kind of having any clear plan or direction, and then they get frustrated because the theme is not doing what they eventually want to do. So I would just say for people to kind of avoid that situation. Me personally, if you're looking for flexibility with something and being able to tweak and modify your own thing, and depending on the business model that you're going, like, are you, and I can't even talk about this in my free course a little bit, like, are you going to be a personal brand? Are you going to be a freelancer? Are you going to be a blogger? Are you going to be a company? What kind of functionality do you need in your website? Are you going to be focusing on list building? Do you want to have e-commerce? And, that kind of stuff too. So, and there are other tools out there, like, if you're going to be primarily focused on e-commerce, but you're not really a coder, Shopify might be a great way to go. And so you just kind of have to think about these things. But yeah, just whatever theme you decide going, whether it's Divi, StudioPress, Thrive, just think about, what is your business model going to be like? Are you going to be, so like me, like I'm a freelancer and a designer, and so I have my site, which is my new site is in the process of being rebranded. Last time Dan and I spoke, I had a different website, but hey, we're always evolving, right? For me, my focus is going to be primarily on one-on-one services, some consulting, but I also have a course as well too. So I want to emphasize that on my site. I'm using Divi because I love the flexibility and functionality that Divi offers. And so, but if I were going to be blogging, I probably maybe would look at like a StudioPress theme or something like that. And so if I were going to be heavily focused on like conversions and opt-ins, I might do something like Thrive themes. And so each theme has kind of a different purpose, like Thrive themes. And Danny, you can speak more to this because you use Thrive themes. They're heavily geared towards marketers. And so if you are going to be focused on marketing and internet marketing and like opt-ins and conversions and like heavy landing pages and like maybe having multiple webinars in a month or something like that, where you need to kind of have measure conversions as a point of success, Thrive themes might be the way to go, so just think about that.
Yeah. I mean, it totally depends on what you're trying to do, because I mean, there's so many different nuances to websites. I mean, and, as a personal brand, if you're doing a personal brand, one of the things that I learned, I mean, and after years of doing this, because it's hard when you don't put things into perspective. And so what I mean by that is, we're in the List Builders Lab with Amy Porterfield. So one of the things that she pointed out that was like really eye-opening, but also like I kind of knew it, but I needed the reminder, is simplicity. And so like your homepage, like a homepage is like, I used to try to build like 500 call to actions on a homepage, and you're not going to get any interaction or engagement or conversions when you have
because people are confused.
Exactly. So like Amy's is her page is beautiful because it's got 3 opt-ins.
Absolutely.
And, she even says in the course, hopefully I'm not giving too much of the course away, but she says in the course is that, even though she's got 3 or, you might think about doing multiple, just focus on one. Just focus on one call to action, and then you can just build out from there.
Absolutely. And I love Amy Porterfield's new website design, because compared to the old one, I mean, it's fantastic. I love it. And I was such a nerd, just how much of a nerd I am. I actually listened to the podcast episode that she did, where she talked about the process that she went through when she was redesigning her website. And it was great for me to hear, because she talked about it from the non-designer perspective. Right. And it really just kind of validated the point that so many people, even if we want to go back to my point number 1 about, them wanting a website like Marie Forleo, Patlin, whomever, so many people want that, but it's not impossible, but it's not necessarily realistic, like right now, especially if you're more in the beginner stage. But it just that, her website took over a year to build. I'm pretty sure it cost 5 figures to build her website. There was a lot of strategy and planning that went into that. She mentioned on the episode that, she kind of thought she had something, but she herself admitted that she did not realize just how much time she personally had to invest in the process. She thought she could just say, okay, well, to her designer, hey, I need a new website. Here's kind of an idea of what I want. Okay, run with it. No, designers are amazing and we're kind of like unicorns, but there's only so much we can do without needing more information, right?
Yeah.
And so she herself admitted that it took over a year, primarily because of delays on her part of getting content and giving feedback. And her business partner, Devin Duncan, he stepped in and said, okay, well, what about this? What about that? So when I look at Amy Porterfield's website with my professional eye, I can see the strategy that's involved in her website. She's got 3 opt-ins, but they all lead to either her List Builders Lab course,
right,
her Content That Converts course, or her Webinar That Converts course. So those 3 opt-ins are very strategically placed in a way to get people into a specific funnel. So when she launches those courses, she's targeting and segmenting. So I see, I'm a nerd, but I see all that. And yes, her homepage is beautifully designed. It's one call to action. You click on it, it goes down. She does a great job of highlighting her podcast and her blog posts. Like, yeah, it's well done. But when you see a website that is so beautifully designed and simple, like Amy Porterfield's new site, just know that took a lot of time,
yes,
effort, tears, late nights, revisions, back and forth. Like, it takes time, and so that's what I want to emphasize, that even Marie Forleo's new website, that took over 2 years of development for that site to come through. Denise Duffield Thomas' new site cost over $10,000 for her new site, the one that you see right now. So there's a lot that goes into it. So before you say, I want a website like that, just think about that person is way ahead of you in terms of, I mean, it's not to say that you can't get to their level, but they're ahead and they have the means they're clear on what they want. They have the means to get to, or they have the means to create a website like that, but it costs them a pretty penny, you better believe, because they didn't do it themselves. They hired that out. So I don't remember where I was going with that, but yeah, we're talking about Amy Porterfield. So I kind of had to mention that I geeked out and listened to that episode. It was great to hear her talk about it from a non-designer perspective, exactly what was involved. And so going back to your original point about the homepage, yeah, I mean, keep it clean. Like right now, my website, my new website, it's just kind of, it's a work in progress, but just iamchrissy.com. It's just a simple landing page that I created in Divi with a link to opt in to my 5-day course. And if you don't want to, you just go to the coming soon page and that's it. Because if you have and to that point, even when I talk to people, when I either talk to clients or I do strategy sessions with people, or website reviews, I love doing website audits, by the way. So if you ever want to do like one live with somebody else, like let me know. I love website audits. Like I geek out on them. But when I do that, one of the first things that I ask is that, okay, so when I go to your website, you've got 5 to 7 seconds to impress me or to kind of capture my attention. And to do that, you need to be very clear about 3 things. What is it that you want me to know about you? So your core value proposition or your statement or your kind of your unique thing. What is it that you want me to do? What is the one call to action that you want me to take upon me landing on your homepage? And then the third is more subjective. It kind of has to do with branding. Is it, how do you want me to feel? And so that could be portrayed by like a specific image. So like going back to Amy Porterfield's example, her homepage does a fantastic job of addressing those 3 things. It says, hi, my name is Amy. And she talks about, who she helps and what she does. Then she's got a call to action that says, find out more. You click on that. The image is a picture of her smiling and immediately I get this feel of like okay, she's friendly, she's approachable, she knows what she's doing, she's kind of inviting me into her home. And so I like that warm, friendly feeling that I get when I go to her website. Even though she's very successful and she is a multiple 7-figure business, she still brings off the air of like being super approachable and down to earth. And so that's kind of my take on that. So there's a quick little website audit of Amy Porterfield's website for you.
Awesome.
So.
We could just tell it's a natural thing when you hear how you speak about all of these different qualities that go beyond just the design of a site. I mean, it's after all, it's personal brand, right? So
yes.
Yeah, excellent. That was an excellent minute by minute kind of analysis, play by play analysis.
Thank you. Yes, I love doing that kind of stuff. So yes.
Cool. Well, this is awesome. So I think we've got a couple different things. I know we didn't do Facebook Live. Hopefully next time we'll get on a Facebook Live when I get that text stuff sorted out. But so for people who are looking to find you, where can they find you?
There are two places that you can find me. So if you are the DIYer who is not yet ready to hire and you're tired of searching Google and YouTube till your eyeballs drop out and you want somewhere to go to learn how to build your website, if you go to 5-day website class, I've got a free 5-day mini series course that you can take. An opt-in is required. But if you want to learn the basics from buying your domain name all the way up to installing Divi and putting up a coming soon page, check that out. I've got free video tutorials and PDFs and all that good stuff. And the other place that you can find me is iamchrissy.com. That is my new online home. It is a work in progress right now. And so, but if you want to check that out, you can go there. So that's where you can find me right now online.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Chrissy, for jumping on a call and sharing some website tips. And hopefully we'll do this again very soon.
Absolutely. I would love to. Thank you for having me, Danny. It's always fun.
Thank you. Take care.